With everything currently going on in the world right now, it's bound to have some sort of impact on our mental health. Because of this, I'm joined with Tommy Hatto, a content creator and public speaker, to discuss how we can all better look after our mental health this year. Hi, Tommy, how are you today?
Hey, Ola, I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for joining me on the podcast.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Very excited to chat all things mental health because, like I mentioned in the introduction, I feel like there's so much going on in the world where I think there's probably more bad news than there is good, and I think that can genuinely have such a negative impact on our mental health. So, very excited to chat with you. So, I guess for everyone listening, please introduce yourself.
Okay, so yeah, as you said, I'm a content creator, public speaker. I talk around sort of diversity, mental health, well-being. Started off my career as an actor, then kind of went into modeling. And yeah, now sort of I put out online just around well-being and living good, wholesome lifestyles, I guess.
Yes, I love that. And what inspired you to go from acting, modelling to then sharing content online?
Through my own journey of sort of self-discovery and self-love and going through my own mental health challenges.
Yeah.
And it was COVID was the catalyst because I was doing kind of all of that stuff. And then COVID hit and that work dried up and I wasn't traveling anymore. And then I just decided I was going to blog, write online around sort of fitness. And what came of that was I had to always go back to the why.
Yeah.
Why am I so interested and passionate about healthy living and looking after myself? And that was because I had body dysmorphia growing up, I had an eating disorder growing up. So I started talking around that online. And I had so many messages from people all over the world, different ages, being like, wow, okay, I did not know somebody who was like in the spotlight would go through something like that.
Yeah.
And I feel that too. And when I was getting those messages, I was seeing them from a lot of men and boys. And growing up, I never felt like anybody could resonate with me because it was like an unspoken thing.
Yeah.
So now I try to just advocate online to help other people feel like you're not alone in this world.
Yeah. And do you think the views on body dysmorphia and mental health have changed since you went through everything you went through growing up?
I think there's always been there. There's always been pressures. I think the pressures are even more so nowadays with social media.
Yeah.
And just so much content online. You know, you look through, even before I was born, you know, from like Calvin Klein models, and even though I've been a Calvin Klein model, but seeing billboards and things of, I don't know, I think they said like something in like the 80s, everyone wanted to look like Arnie.
Wow.
Because bodybuilding was like the big thing at that days. And then it was like through the 90s into 2000s, it was like lean, like David Beckham. And now we're in like this other thing where it's just very athletic, and social media exacerbates that because you just see it everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think the pressures have always been there. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by the fact that having you on, I'm hearing the male perspective. Because for me, I would have been like, oh, this era it was like looking very severely anorexic. Then it would have been like having a BBL. And so the fact that you were able to share like male perspective views on what the trends were for male bodies, something I've never even thought about.
Yeah. I mean, I see it from when I speak to people, you know, different ages again. Like there was that whole, everyone wanted to be really muscular and big because of, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone and, you know, people of that time. And then it was sort of that lean, that kind of Calvin Klein look. And now it's sort of, it's still kind of that lean, athletic look that you see on reality shows and social media.
So interesting. And I'm really excited to kind of delve into your journey and just to hear kind of everything you have gone through, if you don't mind sharing on the podcast today, because I feel like it's very inspirational and I really actually admire the fact that you're able to speak about it so openly. But before we delve into all of that, I kind of want to give you 2 quick fire questions just to warm you up.
Okay.
So my first question for you is, if you won the lottery, what would you spend your money on? And I'm speaking lottery in terms of like 5 to 10 million pounds.
Ooh, okay. That would be nice.
Very nice.
What would I spend that on? So I'll give you like the long-winded answer because I feel like I would not spend it all on one thing. Do you know what I mean? It would be, A lot of it I would invest or put into savings
Yes.
because when you have an amount that much, obviously the interest is going to just make you more money. That's the sensible thing to do.
Yes, I like that, Tommy.
And then, I'd have to treat myself,
Of
go on a
course.
nice holiday, buy a house. I saw this thing, and if I had like a lot of money, I would do. There was this TV show. I can't remember what it was, but it was something like. I think it was like American. It was something like $1 million, and they gave it to one person, and that person could use it for what they wanted, but they didn't have to use the whole amount of money.
Okay.
And then they had to pay the money forwards to somebody else.
Interesting.
And it was like this chain reaction of people just helping each other, people just taking what you need.
Yes.
And then paying it forward. And I'd like to do something like that.
That'd be quite a cool social experiment, to be fair.
Yeah,
as well.
and I think it would be, be very charitable just to help real people and see them help other people too.
Yeah.
So something like that.
I love that. And then traveling, where would you go? What would be the first place you go to?
Ooh, I've been to many countries.
I know you have.
Where would I go? Do you know what? I've never been to Africa. So I would like to go to Africa, do a safari.
Yeah.
No expense spared. Live in one of those huts where you open the curtains and there's a giraffe.
Yeah.
Just there.
That would be the dream.
That
To be
would be
fair, Kenya is on my radar.
Oh, okay.
It is on my radar.
Nice. Okay.
Don't know when, but guys, Kenya is on my radar next.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? But my second question for you is, what's one piece of financial advice you would tell your younger self?
Do you ask this to all your guests?
No.
Oh.
Some.
Okay.
But not always. I try and switch them up sometimes.
Okay. And to the people you ask, they always say invest, right?
Sometimes.
What would I tell my younger self? See, I was really good with money growing up.
Okay, that's good though.
Yeah, I didn't, I came from a family that didn't really come from nothing. My parents worked 2 jobs each. I've been working since I was like 10 years old.
Wow.
My parents had like their own business, a shop, and I would be sweeping the floors.
No way.
Since like 10, and then I
You're
started.
A grafter.
I'm a hustler, man. And then I started acting at like 16, so I've been very good with saving money. But if I was to, it's not necessarily financial advice, it's more life advice.
Okay.
That if I could tell my younger self, it would be, if you want something different, you have to do something different. I think I got caught up in a lot with friends, hey, let's go have a drink, or let's go and do this. And I'd be like, okay, just for the social. And I come from quite a small town, so it's just kind of that mentality. But actually thinking about the bigger picture, that I didn't have to spend my money on weekly going out all the time. Actually, that could have been put to somewhere else.
Yeah.
That actually, if I want something more, I have to do stuff to get there.
Yeah, I love that. And I think stuff like that only comes with like experiencing a number of years of life, because I'm now starting to understand that I don't have to be getting drunk every single weekend to have a good time or to experience life or to enjoy singlehood, right? And I think there's so many societal pressures that makes drinking or even just spending lots of money to seem like you're having a fulfilled life is necessary when it's actually not. And I think I'm learning that massively now as well, in the sense that like I don't have to be spending so much money just to justify the fact that life's too short, because I think I use that as justification a lot of the time.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, you don't have to give in to the pressures that people put on you, that actually the people around you are going to understand what your bigger mission is.
Yes.
And they're going to support you. And I think, it's, and again, not giving into society, it's around, you don't always have to have the latest tech and things like that. Actually, if you have something you're aspiring to want to get to, then that is the priority.
No, I agree. That's a really beautiful way to start this podcast, because I feel like I'm going to be moved by a lot of what you're going to share today. So, yeah, I think obviously I know you quite well, and I've seen quite a lot of your story that you've shared online. Now, like I said, I really respect your transparency. But for those listening today that want to kind of know your story, would you mind kind of sharing your journey from, let's say, the age of 10 up until Tommy today? What did you experience, and how did that affect your mental health?
Yeah, so it probably goes back even when I was a small kid. So, like I said, I was born in sort of a small town in Wiltshire, grew up. My father is British, my mother is Thai. So I had a lot of identity crisis growing up
Yeah.
when I didn't see many people who looked like me. And then that kind of going into school as a very shy, insecure kid because of that upbringing. Then going in and, you know, when you're a teenager, all you want to do is you hang out with your mates, you know, you want to go party and you want to, you know, as a boy, you want to chase girls.
Yeah.
And I was trying to do that and just failed miserably because no girl was ever interested back in me. And I saw, you know, my friends couple up and, you know, get into relationships, and I would think, you know, why not me? Why is this not happening for me? And I would go home, watch TV, and, you know, watch these high school drama shows and see that actually it was the guys who were in shape, who were on the football team. They were the popular ones.
Yeah.
They were the ones who were getting the girls. And then I would go to school the next day, and it was like an awakening, because I think, oh, it's the popular guys who are on the football team who the girls are interested in. And so I kind of just, in my teenage mind, thought, I need to get in shape. You know, then people are going to like me. I'm going to have more friends. I'm going to, you know, people will fancy me. So I'm going to get in shape. And I hated PE at school. I'm a completely different person to how I was at school.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about how to get in shape. So, you know, I would go home, Google how to get in shape. And for anybody who's listening who has researched this, it is a minefield.
Absolutely.
Out there, because you are given hundreds of articles on how to lose weight, get in shape, get fit. But they tell you hundreds of different ways to do it. So you're like, well, which is the right way? And so I just kind of went back to basics and thought, need to eat less, move more. That's what I did.
Okay.
Ultimately, I ended up with an eating disorder. During that time, I thought I looked good, and I was starting to get attention because weight was coming off of me.
Yeah.
And that was a buzz for me. You know, that validation from other people was a buzz for me, and I liked this feeling. And, you know, when we go back to the top of our chat, when we talk around the pressures, you know, I was in school, I was just around leaving school when the second Twilight movie came out. And everybody, I was probably sick and tired of hearing everybody just talk around how hot Taylor Lautner was.
I knew that name was coming out.
Yeah.
Knew the name was coming.
And I hated that he had like a 10-pack.
Yeah.
Because I wanted that. So I felt very pressured to look like that because everybody was talking about him. And like Zac Efron was like the in thing at the time. So that just played on my mind that I had to just keep going to the gym to do that. And then before I knew it, I was constantly in and out of the GP with multiple different sorts of illnesses. My hair was falling out and my nails were very brittle.
Wow.
Sort of had anemia. It wasn't good for my health.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't see it when the doctor said you may have an eating disorder, because I attributed eating disorders to anorexic women.
Yes.
And not a man. And I was like, that's not what I have. I'm a guy. You know, I think you're wrong. So I was in denial for a long time. And then it wasn't until we went on a family holiday down in Cornwall, and I wanted to be on the beach because I thought, you know, take a photo of me on the beach. I'm going to look like Taylor Lautner. I'm going to post this over my Facebook page. And then when I saw the photo, I was like, wow, okay, I look nothing like how I thought I look when I look in the mirror. And it's quite deceiving. Like, you see yourself in the mirror as something, and then you see yourself on some other medium. And that's not the person that you see in the mirror.
Yeah.
And that was a shock to me because, you know, you could see my rib cage, you could see my shoulders protruding. And I was like, wow, this is not good. I'm not going down a good path here. So I needed to find ways to be healthy and to get healthy. And that was kind of the start of the journey of just researching health and understanding, if I'm going to look after myself, I'm going to start doing it for me.
Yes.
Rather than trying to impress somebody. And it was at that time when I left school, I moved to London. I did an internship down in London, and at the same time got scouted to do acting. And then a couple of months later, I was living in Los Angeles. represented by quite a big agency out in LA. And they gave me all of the knowledge of health that I needed. You know, I had a life coach, I had a nutritionist, a personal trainer. So all of that information I wanted, I now had at my fingertips.
Yes.
And that just enabled me to understand so much about health, how to look after myself, how to look after my physical health, how to look after my mental health.
Yeah.
And especially in that industry where it is very predatory in a way, just to really understand myself and look after myself. And then going into that industry, kind of, I started that recovery of an eating disorder, but that's where my body and muscle dysmorphia just went from like 20 to 1,000.
Wow.
Because I was now making money based on how I looked.
Right.
And I always say I was the gold standard of what Tommy Hatto will ever look like. Like I was in the best shape possible.
Yeah.
But I felt like I had to keep being in the best shape possible.
Yes.
When I was meeting people, I was always conscious around, will they compare me to what they've seen in a magazine, a photo of me? You know, what are they going to say about the way that I looked? Are they going to say that, oh, you look better? I had a complex when people would say, you're very photogenic. Because I'd be like, well, does that mean that I look better in photos than I do in real life?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
And that, it was just all of those mind things that just played on my head.
Yeah.
In terms of that. So, yeah, that was kind of the challenges and difficulties that I went through. And it wasn't uncommon in that industry, because I now speak to a lot of people who are sort of in the modeling industry, entertainment industry, who went through exactly the same as me.
Yeah.
But we never spoke about it, because as a man, we never spoke about how we felt, or especially how we looked. You know, it
Yeah,
was,
100%.
if a man was going to talk around that he was conscious of the way that he looked, we were like, okay, that you're not a man.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we're all human.
100%. And obviously, throughout this whole journey, I'm assuming it had a huge impact on your mental health, right?
For sure, exactly. Yeah, I woke up anxious what people would think of me,
Yeah.
insecure. I would go in and, you know, it would just really play on my mind in terms of my mental health. And even the way I always felt as though I had to change my lifestyle to accommodate that I couldn't go out because I had to be in the gym all the time.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a challenging period of my life. It was a fun period, and a period I look back on really fondly. But it was a challenging period for someone who was like 20, 21.
So young.
Yeah, it was really tough.
Yeah. And obviously, I never met Tommy, who went through this period of his life, but I do know Tommy today, and like I said, I really respect you. Obviously, I'm sure you do still have your inner demons that you battle with every day. I'm sure loads of people listening on the podcast can relate to something like that. But how did you overcome the struggles of poor mental health during that period?
Surrounding myself with good people. I had a really great support system.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily talk openly around what I was going through, but just having people who I knew I could trust and who had my best interests at heart was enough for me to feel comfortable and safe.
Yeah.
And I think that for anybody in whatever circumstance in life, it's just around having good people who have the best intentions for you. And I still have that today. You know, I'm still friends with the people that I went to school with from like play school and things, you know what I mean? And I've gathered new friends, and I have a good intuition about these things, that you just have to surround yourself with good people, because I've always felt I don't even have to talk about the challenges that I'm going through, but just being with them, it just makes me feel safe.
Yeah. And I'd like to add that having your best intentions at heart in bold, because I think you can be surrounded by seemingly good people and them actually not want the best for you, right? Because especially in the industry you probably worked in, you probably may have encountered people that seemed great and they wanted to be around you, but probably wanted you to continue down that slippery slope because that meant they got the best of Tommy Hatto, the best person for their magazines or newspaper covers, etc., etc.
And even, you know, I've had agencies in the past which, you know, got me great work and big work, but they would push me because the more work that I could get, the more money that they could earn.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So on the surface, where they were like, you know, you can do this, and you know, you're worthy of of this brand or whatever could say, you know, you're worthy of that. And they could have my best intentions at heart, but there was always another agenda to it.
Yes.
Actually, this contract was worth X amount and they were going to get a cut of that.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. Sometimes there's an ulterior motive at play. And I think that sometimes in life, wherever we are in our life stages, I think that's something we always really need to be careful of. But obviously, like I mentioned in the intro, there's a lot going on at the moment where things can have a negative impact on our mental health, whether that's watching the news, social media. There's so many things at play right now, finances, right? So why do you think it's really important that we look after our mental health?
I don't necessarily categorize it separately as mental health and physical health.
Yeah.
For me, it's just around looking after ourselves.
Yes.
All aspects of that. That is, you know, through nutrition, that is through mindfulness and mental health, that is through exercise. It's making sure that we can be the best versions of ourselves in whatever capacity. No matter where we show up, we're going to always put our best foot forward because we are the best version of ourselves. And what you see of me is what I work very hard behind the scenes to bring, because I make sure that I avoid very negative news.
Yes.
You know, I have to be realistic and understand what's going on in the world, but I don't need to be consumed by it.
Yeah.
I look after what I eat because nutrition has such a big correlation with mental health. You know, there's, you know, you eat the right things and all of those nutrients, they put a reaction in your body and they send the signals to wherever. And, you know, you get good feelings from that.
Yeah.
Same with exercise. You know, you release those endorphins and you release, you know, those feel good energy things. And so it's all around, all encompassing, just looking after ourselves and making sure that in each aspect we're filling that cup.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And I've spoken to quite a lot of people that view health in such a holistic way, and I think you've encapsulated that beautifully by saying exercise, what we eat, the people we surround ourselves by, right? And I'm keen to know your view, because obviously I work predominantly in the finance space. Do you think there is a big correlation between our finances and our mental health?
Oh, 100%. I think so. I think it is one of the things that when I speak to so many young people, that is the thing that keeps them up at night.
Yeah.
Probably like the number one or number two thing that keeps them up at night is finances. And whether that is, you know, if they've gone to uni and then they come out of uni and they've got all of this debt that's lingering behind them, or trying to get on the career ladder and they see other people of their age and they're doing better than them. You know, it all comes down to finances as such. Nutrition, that people can't get the right nutrition because
it's expensive.
It's expensive. I mean, it's expensive, but then there are bits where you can, you know, vegetables can be very cheap.
Yes.
You know, and you can bulk buy vegetables and make some really good hearty things. And I think, again, you know, people trying to understand and navigate a healthy lifestyle, they just see the pound signs.
Yeah.
So that keeps them up at night. You know, trying to get in shape and look after your physical health. You know, that if people like to, aside from running, or, you know, that people can't afford to get a bicycle, people can't afford to go to the gym, people can't afford to go to classes. So that keeps them up at night.
Yeah.
So there is a correlation between finances and mental health, because in reality, you know, we all need money to be able to do stuff in life, you know, and to get through life for the many years to come. And when I talk around, you know, you want to show up as your best self, it does cost.
Yes.
You know, that is the reality of it. So it's just around, I think it's just around trying to have a relationship with finances without comparing yourself to other people, number one. Secondly, it's trying to understand, you know, where you want to get to and how you're going to get there.
Yeah.
And three, it's around making sure that you have good mentors and coaches and experts around that you're looking for that can help you get to where you want to get to. And I think, and when we talk around mental health specifically, it's just around being easy on yourself.
So true.
Don't put so much pressure. I spent many years being like, I need to make this. I still do.
Yeah. I think we all do.
Yeah,
I think we're all guilty of that.
Yeah. So it's just, give yourself a break. You know, if you're in a good position, be thankful for that. Be grateful for that. If you're in a not so grateful position, you know, there are other things that you can, as cheesy as it sounds, be grateful for. And then you work to make a plan on actually how am I gonna improve my financial situation.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think those tips are perfect, especially based on the topic of this conversation, because I work with a lot of people, and like you said, finance has a huge impact on people's mental health, stress levels, performance at work, and there's so many direct correlations to finances and just people being able to exist happily, right? And so what I think you shared there was amazing in the sense that I think setting a plan, you know, what can we do right now? So where do you find yourself if you're listening right now and you're like, my finances are down the drain, this bill's coming out my ear, this rent has been increased, yada yada. I think, like you mentioned, having a plan and what can we do to change it is so important, because I think when we're in the thick of things, I think we always think this is what life's going to be forever, and I don't think that's necessarily the case, right?
No, I think we have sort of this short-term emotional release where something bad happens, and we think, okay, my life is over. You know, we kind of catastrophize a lot of stuff. And actually, it is around just making sure that you are calm, that you can have your outburst. It's very natural. I do it. A lot of people I know do it. Then it's around taking a step back and thinking, okay, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Where do I go from here now? Who do I need to speak to? What do I need to do? Where do I need to go? And I think when you can be level-headed and calm, then you can sort of see beyond the horizon a little bit more.
Yeah. And I've got a question for you, Tommy, because obviously you've done a lot of work now to work on your overall holistic health, which I love seeing your stories every day when you're eating salad bowls and you're putting me to shame when I've had like a hamburger or a pizza for lunch. But what was your turning point where you're like, this is enough, I need to make a change? And how can people recognise when they maybe need to make a change themselves? Because I think it's all good and well us sharing tips sometimes, but I think sometimes, is there like a rock bottom, or is there a way of capturing ourselves before we hit rock bottom?
Oh yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether I did hit rock bottom or not, because I've always kind of understood myself, and I've always tried to look at the bigger picture, and perspective has been a huge one. It's something that my parents kind of always instilled in me, is to look at the perspective of things. But I've done a lot of work over the past 10 years just to really think, okay, well, what is it that, you know, what's valuable to me? What are my values? What do I want to be known for? And, you know, that's around being kind.
Yeah.
And when I say kind, in the beginning, it was kind to other people. Now it's about being kind to other people, but also being kind to myself.
Yes.
Because I can't exclude myself from these conversations. So, you know, when I want to give love out and, you know, I want to support people, I have to do that for myself as well. And I think so when you're trying to set what your intentions are around who you want to be, and you always have to look insular as well and inward, and actually think, I need to give that to myself as well. And that is around making sure that you do look after your mental health, physical health, whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, and for me, it's around making sure that you have good people around you, people that will lift you up, people that have very similar mindsets to you, or actually what you want to aspire to be.
So true.
You know? Make sure you're with those types of people. Reading is a great one. I'm not a massive reader, so, you know, I just like to read small anecdotes.
Okay.
Whether that be on Instagram quotes.
Yes.
I want to make sure that when I'm opening up my socials, that I see positivity. That
I
actually,
think that's really important at the moment.
it's really important. And I don't scroll through loads. I'll see like one quote and I'll think, okay, that's the quote I'm going to focus on today. How can I do that? And I may forget about it the next day, but I'll have another positive quote that I'll focus on. So yeah, and I do I do this kind of like affirmation stuff.
Why are we laughing?
The big, do you know what? You're totally right. You are totally right. I always just find it a bit. I don't want to say like I'm woo woo such, but I'm kind of woo woo.
I'm here for it. I spent a month in Bali.
Exactly.
So.
Yes, that's true. So yeah, I will say affirmations around myself. You know, Tommy, today, your day is going to be filled with abundance and joy.
Yes.
Things like that. You know what I mean? And it does have some sort of reaction in your brain.
Yeah.
To think, actually, the way I think and approach today is going to be a bit different.
Yeah.
So there's things that people can do. And so there wasn't really a light bulb moment, a catalyst as such. It was just things that I was aware of, but I wasn't necessarily doing. And when I started doing, that's when I had a better relationship with myself.
Yeah.
Because now I go through, and I don't worry about what people think of me, because I only worry around, actually, am I showing up to be the person that I want to be?
Yes.
Am I a kind person? Am I somebody that people wants to hang around with? Am I somebody who people want to aspire to be like? Do I inspire people? Do I entertain people? You know, that's the person. If I think I'm doing a good job, then I carry on through that. Don't get me wrong, there's always going to be days where I'm like, I don't think this person likes me.
Always.
It's
That's
natural.
life.
It's life.
Yeah.
You know, and I think I can't control that. I can only control me.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's so true. I think everything you said there is, I couldn't have put it better myself. And I think, like you said, it's about being kind to ourselves, giving ourselves grace. Like, the biggest thing I've kind of gone into this year with is being kinder to myself, giving myself grace. And I think when you're self-employed and you're a business owner, that is the hardest thing to do sometimes, especially when you're comparing yourself to other people online, or so-and-so's got X contract that you could have got but you didn't get. And I think sometimes you beat yourself over it. And I think there's so many controllables that we can't control, right?
Oh yeah, you know, I do the same. You know, it was the same. You know, I'll go for like auditions for acting roles, and somebody else will get it and I won't, and I'll still think, you know, I wish I should have done better.
Yeah.
But again, it's just pulling yourself back. I always try to take moments just to pull myself back and think, what's meant for me will be meant for me.
Yeah.
What is meant for them is meant for them.
Yeah.
And it's the same with public speaking gigs, brand contracts. Things will come to me when they come to me.
Yeah.
And if I can just be open to the opportunity, I'm in the prime position to be able to accept them.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of you guys listening could probably reframe that to like your current job situation, or, you know, if you're waiting for like certain contracts, things like that. I think there's so many ways we can reframe that so it does feel relatable to ourselves. So thank you so much for that, Tommy. But I guess one thing that I'm really conscious of is, obviously we mentioned about surrounding ourselves with positive people, people that care about us, friends, family, colleagues. There might be someone or some people listening to the podcast or watching that are probably thinking, I'm at the pits of my despair, or my finances in the worst possible situation, but I don't have anyone to turn to. Do you have any recommended hotlines or charities that people can reach out to?
Oh, okay. And not specifically in terms of finances. I mean, there's so many good mental health charities and organizations who will be able to support with this. Because as we discussed, you know, finance and mental health have a huge almost dependency on each other. So, you know, Mind is a big one. It's a one that I'm a huge advocate of.
Yes.
They do amazing work. Then Young Minds, they really focus on sort of young people. I've worked with them in the past, and yeah, they're just really inspiring in terms of trying to support young people and really drive change across like government in terms of support for young people. So, you know, those are the big two that I would mention. And then there's smaller ones for sort of, you know, any like body dysmorphia stuff. Yeah. And we have like Calm. But yeah, those are the ones that I would signpost people to in the first instance.
I haven't heard of the last two, so thank you very much for sharing those two. And I guess as an addition, if you are struggling with your finances, then there are places like Citizens Advice, there is Christians Against Poverty, there's so many organisations, so please don't feel like you're struggling alone if you are listening or watching. But Tommy, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you very
the conversation's flown by so much, but
yeah.
It was really inspiring and touching to hear your whole story, because I haven't heard it all. So thank you very much for sharing that on the podcast today. But obviously you share great content online, because I feel like you're getting up to something new every single day. And also you do a lot of public speaking. So if anyone wanted to kind of view your content or book you for as a speaker, where can people go to find you?
Ooh, on all the socials. I'm probably most active on Instagram.
Okay.
So Tommy Hatto is my username. LinkedIn, Tommy Hatto. TikTok, Tommy Hatto. Visit my website and drop me an email. So yeah, that's me.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much, Tommy.
Thank you, Ola.